The twin sons of Krevax. 9 hung low in the sky, casting long, ochre shadows over the scorched plateau where the Vorik gathered. Their armor, bone-white and cruelly adorned, glinted beneath the harsh light as they formed a silent circle around the ancient offering pit. Wind whipped across the barren ground, flinging grit into the air, but no one flinched. The ritual was beginning. A low horn groaned from the ridge above, signaling the arrival of the sacrifice. 2 Vorik soldiers emerged from the dust-strewn trail, dragging a small figure between them. She stumbled once, caught her balance, and lifted her chin in defiance. Human, unmistakably. A child, no older than 11. Dirt caked her knees and face, but her eyes remained sharp. Blue as seared ice, they cut through the scene with a clarity that unsettled even the seasoned warriors. Arya. Her name echoed in her mind like a whisper from home. She had screamed it when they took her, screamed for her parents, for the crew, for anyone, but no one had answered. The Vorik said little, only gestured with their weapons and barked guttural commands she couldn't understand. She had learned quickly. Silence kept bruises from multiplying. The arena was a circular pit, scorched black from age and history. Bones, some alien, some unmistakably human, littered the perimeter. Ancient claw marks were etched deep into the stone, radiating outward like the ripples of some nightmare. It stank of dry blood, ozone, and fear. The Vorik priests, tall, robed in deep crimson, stood nearest to the edge. One held a rusted censer that smoked with a metallic green mist. Another chanted in a throaty language that felt more like a growl than a prayer. Arya was shoved forward. She caught herself with her palms, scraping her skin raw on the gritty ground. Her dress, once pale, hung in tatters around her knees. She blinked up at the crowd. Alien eyes watched her from every angle, impassive and cruel. A deep rumble split the silence. The pit's far gate groaned open. From the shadows emerged the beast. Massive, fur like molten steel, teeth like daggers of ivory. It walked on all fours, its frame hunched but powerful, muscle rippling beneath its thick hide. A collar, metal, fused to flesh, hummed with psionic energy. Its eyes, however, were not wild. They burned not with madness, but intelligence. Calculating. A predator that knew it was feared. Arya froze. Her body screamed at her to run, to curl into the dust, to do anything but stare into that abyssal gaze. Yet she held still. Something primal and unspoken passed between them in that moment. Recognition, or something older. The Vorik roared approval from above. To them, the outcome was assured. The beast stepped forward. Its claws dug furrows into the sand as it closed the distance. Arya's breath came shallow. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. Somewhere deep inside, some corner untouched by terror, refused. If she was to die, she would do so on her feet. The beast drew within arm's length. It lowered its head, sniffed at her, exhaled a breath that smelled of scorched earth and copper. Its snout brushed her hair. Then it paused. The crowd fell into confused silence. Arya blinked. The beast's ears twitched. Its lips curled, revealing fangs, but not in a snarl. It stepped back. A priest barked a command. The collar around the beast's neck flared, sending a crackling arc of energy through its body. It growled, enraged, but not at her. Its eyes flashed toward the source of the pain. Arya, unsure whether to flee or kneel, remained motionless. She could hear her heart. Fast, fragile, furious. The beast lowered its massive frame until its muzzle was level with her face. Slowly, uncertainly, it leaned in. Arya did the unthinkable. She raised her hand. A murmur passed through the onlookers. Her palm pressed lightly against the creature's snout. It flinched, not from pain but memory. Something ancient stirred, not instinct, something closer to emotion. The creature exhaled, warm and deliberate. The pit fell into stillness. A child and a monster, face to face. One of the priests shouted, and another surge of psionic energy cracked across the beast's back. It howled, an ear-splitting, soul-shaking sound that echoed off the stone walls and sent a ripple of fear through the crowd. But the beast did not strike her. It turned, snarled, stared up at the priests. The guards tensed. Arya saw their weapons begin to rise. "No," she cried, her voice raw and foreign against the silence. The word meant nothing to them, but the sound, it carried meaning. Fearless, pleading. The beast heard it too, and something within it changed. With a roar that shattered the air, the creature leapt, not at Arya, but at the gate it had come through. Its clawed hands tore into the stone, smashing it aside as if paper. The Vorik above reeled, some stepping back in alarm. Arya stood alone in the pit, untouched. The beast turned once more. Its eyes met hers. It made a low, grumbling sound, neither threat nor command. Then it disappeared into the shadows. The silence that followed was a vacuum. The priests whispered among themselves. The crowd murmured, uncertain now. The ritual had never failed. No human had ever walked away. No beast had ever chosen to spare. A guard approached her slowly, weapon lowered, as though afraid she might burn his hands. He gestured for her to rise. She did. Her legs trembled beneath her, but she rose. They didn't beat her this time. They didn't drag her. They led her, warily, back into the city, past spires of obsidian and walkways etched in gold. Whispers followed her like shadows. Not even the lowest caste would meet her gaze. She was taken to a chamber, high in the ziggurat, where light from the dying suns filtered through stained crystal. Alone again, finally, Arya collapsed onto the cold floor, clutching her knees to her chest. She didn't cry. Not yet. Her mind raced too fast. That thing had spared her, had seen her, not prey, not offering, something else. She didn't know what, but it had spared her when it could have easily ended her life. Why? The door creaked. A figure entered, cloaked in deeper red than the priests, adorned in jewelry of bone and glass. A female Vorik, older, eyes sharp as obsidian. "You are not what we expected," she said in clipped English. Arya's breath caught. "You understand me," the woman continued. "That is useful." She crouched before the child, not unkindly. "There will be more questions. You are either a prophecy or a mistake. Both are dangerous." Arya looked up at her, defiance tempered by exhaustion. "I didn't ask to be here," she whispered. "No," the Vorik said, "but you are here. And now, everything has changed." She rose, her robes sweeping across the stone. The door closed behind her with a whisper of finality. Arya remained on the floor, eyes still wide open, listening to the silence that followed. The beast had spared her, but the real danger was just beginning. The chamber where Arya had been confined smelled faintly of rust and incense. Alien glyphs pulsed along the walls, bathing her in a dim amber glow that never fully reached the corners. Time blurred inside those walls. There were no windows, no sunrises to mark the passage of days. Food arrived at irregular intervals, strange fruits and protein gels delivered by silent attendants who never made eye contact. Yet Arya stayed alert. Her mind refused to go numb. The beast's face never left her thoughts. She could still feel its breath against her skin, the vibration of its growl in her chest. Not terror, but something else had held her frozen in that pit. It had seen her, truly seen her. And more than that, it had understood. She began to test her memory, for details. The collar, sparking with pain. The way it had flinched when touched. She tried to imagine the agony of living like that for years, trained to kill, punished for hesitation. What would that do to something that once might have known peace? The door opened without warning. Arya straightened, squaring her shoulders out of instinct. The elder Vorik woman entered again. She moved with the kind of grace only experience brings, deliberate, measured, dangerous. You've rested enough, the woman said. The council demands clarity. I don't understand what happened, Arya replied. It was a lie. She understood too well, more than she wanted to admit. Neither do we, the woman said, eyes narrowing. The Fenrax has never spared anyone. Until now. Arya sat silently, unsure what to offer that wouldn't paint her a threat. The woman circled her slowly, studying her with academic detachment. Tell me, the alien continued, what did you do in the pit? Nothing. You must have projected something. A frequency. A pattern. Empathy, perhaps. I didn't. Arya stopped. Her mind snapped back to childhood, to whispered conversations between her parents. Experiments. Neural irregularities. A sensitivity they couldn't explain. Her mother once said she felt like Arya could hear feelings. You're afraid of me, Arya said quietly. The Vorik woman stilled. Her mouth curled slightly. Not in amusement, but intrigue. You were bred to be prey, she said. Yet you speak as predator. Arya held her gaze. Maybe that's what scares you. A pause hung between them. Then the woman nodded. Follow me. They moved through the upper ziggurat in silence, climbing narrow ramps past carved murals of conquest and blood. The air thickened with altitude and meaning. Eventually, they emerged into a room lined with crystal. A viewing platform overlooked the arena far below. The beast had returned. It prowled the perimeter, slower now, cautious. Its wounds from the punishment had begun to scar over. Jagged welts seared into its flanks. Vorik technicians stood near the railing, monitoring displays pulsing with alien script. It returned on its own, the woman said. We assumed it fled into the wastelands. It did not. Arya stepped closer to the glass. The beast stopped pacing and turned its head. Their eyes met again. This time, the bond was undeniable. It's waiting for you, the woman said. Why? That is what we intend to discover. She gestured, and a door hissed open at the base of the tower. Arya turned sharply. You want me to go back in there? No, the woman replied. We need you to. You are the variable, the only deviation. Without you, the creature is unstable. With you it listens. That is valuable. Arya shook her head, stepping back. You want to control it. Use it again. That thing is in pain. It is a weapon. Its pain is not your concern. Arya clenched her fists. Maybe that's why you've never understood it. The woman studied her in silence for a moment longer, then spoke with a colder edge. You misunderstand your role, child. You're not free. You are an asset. The only reason you still breathe is because the beast allows it. If that changes, so will our hospitality. She turned and exited, leaving Arya staring down at the creature far below. Later that cycle, under armed escort, Arya descended into the arena once more. This time, she walked through the gate herself. The air was dry, thick with electric tension. The Fenrax stood in the center, tail swaying slowly, head lowered, not in submission, but awareness. It had been waiting. Arya stepped forward, heartbeat loud in her ears. I'm here, she whispered. The creature moved toward her, slower than before. She saw recognition in its eyes, deeper now, less reactive. It was aware in a way animals weren't supposed to be. When she reached out again, it didn't flinch. Her hand touched its snout. A pulse like static crackled up her arm. Not pain, but something more intimate. A signal. Words without language. Feelings without voice. fear, rage, loneliness, pain. The images crashed in her mind. Metal tables, screaming, flashing lights, hunger so sharp it gnawed at the bones. Arya stumbled backward, overwhelmed. The beast let out a low growl, not angry but worried, concerned. She recognized it instantly. "I see you," she whispered, voice trembling. "I'm sorry." The words had no meaning to the Fenrax in any language it had been taught, but the emotion behind them was a bridge. The Vorik scientists above watched in stunned silence. Readings flared across their screens, neural resonance levels off the charts. The beast's aggression centers were suppressed. Its psionic nodes, dormant for years, flickered awake. In a nearby chamber, the Vorik woman turned to her second-in-command. "We're looking at cognitive reactivation." She's unlocked it. The assistant stared at the screen. "Should we neutralize her?" "No," the elder said, fingers steepled beneath her chin. "We watch. For now." Back in the arena, Arya sat in the dust. The Fenrax curled beside her like a monstrous shadow. She reached out again, fingers brushing over the metallic collar. The beast flinched. "It hurts you," she said. The creature's head jerked slightly, agreement. She could feel it. Whatever signal the collar emitted, it triggered memories of torture, obedience, suppression. The worst kind of leash. "I'll get it off you," she promised. The creature made a soft sound, almost like a breath, almost like hope. That night, Arya wasn't returned to her chamber. Instead, she was escorted to a dark stone cell. No windows, no ambient light. A punishment, or a test. Maybe both. Still, she didn't cry. She lay on the cold floor, eyes wide open in the dark, and thought about the Fenrax. It had been made to kill, yet it had chosen to spare her. She was no longer just a survivor. She was something else now. An anomaly, a threat, or maybe a catalyst. She didn't fully understand what the beast had awakened in her, or what she had awakened in it. But she knew one thing. They weren't finished. Not yet. The cell was colder than Arya remembered. Cold not just in temperature, but in purpose, designed to isolate, to suppress thought and courage alike. Her fingers ached from the stone floor, but she didn't move. If she slept, the memories came too fast. Visions not entirely her own. The Fenrax had shared something with her that first time, and since then, it had not stopped. Each night, the dreams returned. A world not her own, skies the color of bruised fire. The Fenrax not alone, but part of a pack. Tall, graceful creatures with psionic song in their veins. Harmony. Then, the rupture. Ships breaking through the atmosphere. Fire, noise, pain. She had never seen these images in her life, yet they lived behind her eyes now, as real as anything from Earth. It wasn't just a beast. It was the last of its kind. She sat up slowly, the pieces beginning to fit together. The Vorik hadn't just tamed a creature. They had stolen a culture, reduced it to a weapon. Arya wasn't the anomaly. They were. The door slid open. This time, the elder Vorik woman entered alone, her expression unreadable. She stood in silence for a long time, as if unsure whether to speak at all. "We have confirmed it," she said finally. "The neural resonance between you and the Fenrax is increasing, even when separated." Arya didn't answer. "You feel its thoughts even now?" "Yes." The Vorika's gaze narrowed. "You have a bond with a being engineered to obey us. That bond does not belong to you." "No," Arya replied. "It belongs to him." Something shifted in the elder's stance. Not anger, caution. "Do you know what that creature has done?" she asked. "I've seen it." "Then you understand why we keep it controlled." Arya rose slowly to her feet. "You don't control it. You cage it. You hurt it until it forgets what it was. But it remembers now. It's remembering because of me. And that," the Vorik said softly, "makes you dangerous." They stared at each other. Then, without another word, Arya was led out. Not to the arena this time, but deep into the ziggurat, through winding, vaulted halls that grew darker the further they descended. Eventually, they entered a chamber shaped like a dome, lit only by the glow of floating crystal orbs. In its center stood the Fenrax. No collar. It turned its head as she entered. Her breath caught. Without the collar's suppressive field, its full presence hit her like a wave. Emotions raw and vibrant surged through her. Rage, sorrow, confusion, and something else. Relief. You took it off, she whispered. The elder stepped forward. For now, it seems we can no longer afford to understand the creature without you. Arya stepped closer. The Fenrax didn't flinch. Its massive form lowered slightly, eyes half-lidded, chest rumbling in what she now recognized as comfort. It trusted her. I need to understand what it wants, Arya said. And if what it wants is vengeance, the Vorik asked. Arya didn't look away. Then you'll see what happens when you corner something that should have been left free. The elder exhaled. We are giving you one chance. You will speak to it. You will learn its mind. If it resists, the collar goes back on, and you go back into the pit. This time alone. I understand. She knelt beside the Fenrax, placing her hand against its thick fur. Its mind surged against hers like a storm, but she held firm. Images, thoughts, feelings poured into her again, faster this time, more coherent. She began to see him not just as a beast, but as a person, a mind locked in a prison of instincts and pain. She spoke aloud, knowing he would hear beyond the words. You were taken. They killed your kind, turned you into a weapon. He shuddered beneath her hand. But I see you. I know who you are. A pulse of light flickered along the walls, as if the chamber itself responded. The Fenrax raised its head. For the first time it spoke, not with words, but with a deep psionic projection that filled the room. The Vorik staggered back. Arya gasped. The voice was not male or female. It was memory made sentient, sorrow given sound. I am lastborn. Her throat tightened. What do you want? A moment passed. Then, one image, clearer than the rest, unfolded across her mind like a tapestry of flame and ash. A tower. A laboratory. Beneath it, cages. Hundreds of them. Creatures like the Fenrax. Silent. Broken. Dying. They were still alive. Her knees gave way. The projection vanished. You lied, she said, turning to the elder. You said he was the last. The elder's expression faltered for the first time. The others are not viable. They're alive, Arya said. And you've hidden them. They are failures. They are his people. She turned back to the Fenrax. He was trembling, not from fear, but from fury. His muscles coiled. If he struck now, nothing in this room would stop him. Not even her. But he didn't move. Instead, he lowered his head and let out a low, mournful sound that filled the space with unbearable grief. Arya turned to the elder. You want to study him? Then start listening. He's not going to help you until you free the others. The woman was silent for a long time. Then, softly, if we open the vault and they are beyond saving, what happens next will be your burden. I'll carry it. When Arya returned to her cell that night, the door didn't lock behind her. She sat in the corner, back to the wall, and waited. The dreams came again, but this time, they weren't just memories. They were plans. He was speaking to her now, showing her the layout of the facility, the location of the vault, the patterns of the guards, the weak points in the structure. He was asking her not just to help. He was asking her to lead. And Arya, 11 years old, orphaned, alone, knew without hesitation what her answer would be. The night of the escape came like a held breath finally exhaled. No sirens, no alarms, just the hush of tension running through the ziggurat's bones, as if even the ancient stone sensed what was coming. Arya moved in silence, her bare feet careful on the polished floors, the Fenrax beside her like a living shadow. He had shrunk himself to avoid detection, crouching low, sinew and muscle coiled in silence. Their bond was no longer fragile. It was forged. Through their connection, she felt everything. His anticipation, his fear, his memories, like blood-warm rivers running parallel to her thoughts. His people waited, buried beneath this place. Forgotten. No more. They crossed the outer sanctum with calculated efficiency. Arya had memorized every hallway, every patrol. She used the shifts between shadow and torchlight to slip past the few guards still stationed near the inner vault. Most never looked down, never imagined a human child and a fallen god beast could stalk past them unseen. At the threshold, she paused. The final door loomed, sealed by a Voric genetic lock. Her stomach twisted. They hadn't planned this part fully. There had been no opportunity to steal a print or copy a key. But the Fenrax stepped forward. He lowered his head and touched the panel with the flat of his skull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the metal groaned, ancient machinery awakening, recognizing the blood of its prisoner. The lock disengaged with a grinding hiss. They descended. The vault smelled of chemicals and cold death. Rows of containment pods stretched into the gloom, suspended in fluid, bodies tangled in tubes and metal. Dozens of them, smaller, weaker, some misshapen, but unmistakably Fenrax. His kin. Arya's heart broke. He padded forward, his claws silent on the metal floor. As he looked from one pod to another, sorrow pulsed through their link, wordless and sharp. These were not just weapons. They were children, elders, broken survivors. Lost echoes of a culture shattered. Then one pod flickered. Alive. A pulse. The creature inside was smaller, leaner. Female, maybe. Its eyes opened slowly, glowing faintly with recognition. Arya stepped forward and touched the controls. Alien script blurred before her eyes, but the Fenrax leaned close and nudged a specific rune. She pressed it. The pod hissed. Fluid drained. The tube split. The creature tumbled out weakly. It was shaking, ribs visible beneath its matted fur, but alive. Its eyes flicked from Arya to the Fenrax. Then it whimpered, a sound not of fear, but of longing. She found her brother. He moved quickly then, not with rage, but purpose. He guided Arya to each of the viable pods, identifying those who could still wake. For more were freed, collapsing in slow motion into a forming cluster around their alpha. They leaned against one another, confused, dazed but breathing. And Arya stood at their center, drenched in sweat and hope and defiance. Then came the sirens. The chamber lit red. Metal screamed. The elder Voric woman's voice crackled through the speakers, cold and sharpened by betrayal. You were given mercy. You chose treason. Arya turned, heart hammering. The Fenrax stepped in front of her, baring his teeth. Behind him, the others stirred, growling low, instincts reawakening with primal clarity. They remembered too. The chains, the pain, the loss. Above, the doors slammed shut. Lockdown initiated. They were trapped. The Fenrax turned to Arya. A single image flashed in her mind. A weak point beneath the floor, buried in maintenance schematics they'd shared through the dream link. Explosive store nearby. Just enough to breach. She nodded. They moved in sync. The Fenrax leapt, claws tearing through conduit and panel. Arya scrambled to the storage racks, pulling what she could, volatile compounds, battery cores, flares. She shoved them into the breach the Fenrax had made. No hesitation. She lit the charge and ran. The explosion wasn't thunderous. It was precise. The floor gave way with a roar of steel on stone. The group dropped into darkness, tumbling through broken scaffolds and ancient ducts, landing hard but intact in a chamber beneath the vault. Dust choked the air. Lights flickered. They had one path forward. No retreat. They ran. The ziggurat above was in chaos. Vorik guards scrambled through corridors, shouting in clipped tones. But the attackers didn't engage them. The Fenrax led them through tunnels long forgotten, instinct guiding him through a maze carved before memory. Arya followed without question. They emerged into open air. Desert wind struck her face. Stars burned overhead. She collapsed onto the sand, lungs burning, eyes wet. Behind her, the others filtered out one by one, blinking, growling, afraid but free. The Fenrax stood tall beneath the sky, raising his head in silence. Then he howled. It was not the sound of a beast. It was a lament. The others joined him, trembling cries rising like a hymn. Arya fell to her knees. Something ancient and broken was being sung back to life. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the meaning. They were no longer alone. The Vorik wouldn't give up. She knew that. They would come. They would hunt. But tonight, something greater had been reclaimed. She turned to him. What now? The answer came not in pictures or sound, but in a feeling so strong it brought tears to her eyes. Rebuild. Protect. Resist. He would not flee. He would not hide. The Fenrax were not weapons. They were survivors. And Arya? She was no longer a pawn in someone else's experiment. She was their voice, their witness, their bridge. She walked into the circle of the Fenrax. They surrounded her, not to threaten, but to welcome. She raised her face to the wind and breathed, for the first time, without fear. Far in the distance, the ziggurat burned, not from fire, but from the truth finally unleashed. And in the desert night, under unfamiliar stars, a girl and her monsters began to write a new story. One of freedom, one of return, one of vengeance tempered by mercy. Their war had only just begun.